This video goes over how to find the midpoint of a line segment. So in general, the midpoint of the line segment is given by the following formula: x1 plus x2 over 2, and then the y-coordinate is y1 plus y2 over 2. You're just trying to find the point that is exactly in the middle of the line. So the first example is we're going to find the midpoint between the following pairs of points. So midpoint we usually represent with a capital M. I'm going to add the x-coordinates together and divide by 2, add the y-coordinates together and divide by 2, which is going to give me the midpoint for 8. The next one, I'm going to start the same way. So my midpoint is adding the x-coordinates together, dividing by 2, adding the y-coordinates together and dividing by 2, which would give our final answer as 4 and minus 2. I don't need to see you write the formula every time. I do need to see what values you're adding together before you get the answer. This way, in case you make an algebraic mistake, like you did 2 plus 6 is 12 divided by 2, and got 6 instead, I can give you part marks for knowing how to set up the question. Let's do the last one. I'm going to add my x-coordinates together, divide by 2, add my y-coordinates together, and divide by 2, which is going to give me a midpoint of minus 3 and 0. The second example is more of a problem-solving type question, where you're looking for the points that will divide the line segment EG into 4 equal parts. So in order to do that, I'm going to sketch a little picture. This is my line segment EG. The midpoint is what we found above. We know those two endpoints. If I want to divide it into 4 equal parts, I would also find my midpoint here between EM, and then I'm going to find my midpoint here between MG. So the first midpoint that I'm going to find is between E and G. So in order to do that, I'm going to add my x-coordinates together, 3 plus minus 9, divide by 2. Then I'm going to add my y-coordinates together and divide by 2. That's going to give me a midpoint of minus 3 and positive 3. So now I found my midpoint of the line segment, and now I'm going to find the middle of those halves of the line segment to break it into 4 equal parts. So the next one that I will do is the midpoint between E and M. So I'm going to add my midpoints together, and let's say mid EG, so you know which point I'm using. So I'm going to add my x-coordinates together of my original midpoint and my E coordinate. So I've got 3 plus minus 3, divide by 2. Then I'm going to add my y-coordinates together, 8 plus 3, divide by 2, which will give me 0 and 11 over 2. Now I found the midpoint of my first half. My last thing to do is to find the midpoint of my second half. So midpoint between M, E, G, and point G. Now I'm using the original midpoint I found in step 1 and my G coordinate of the endpoint. So I'm going to add my x-coordinates together, divide by 2, and then I'm going to add my y-coordinates together and divide by 2. This will give me my final midpoint to break that original line segment up into 4 equal pieces. And my final point is going to be 6 and 1/2. The last example that we're going to do is another problem-solving example. And here I have the midpoint of a line segment is M, 1, 4, and I know one endpoint. So I'm trying to find the other endpoint. And so I'm going to start with my midpoint equation here. So I know that my midpoint is x1 plus x2 over 2 and y1 plus y2 over 2. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to let A represent x1, x2, and I'm going to let B x1, y1, and I'm going to let B represent x2, y2. My midpoint I already have, so now I'm going to make a substitution on the left-hand side for my midpoint. I'm going to put in the values that I know for A, and I'm going to leave B alone as my other endpoint. So now what I have are two equations, one for x2 and one for y2. I can rearrange and solve these equations for my missing point. So x2 is going to be minus 2. y2 is going to be 1. So therefore, the other endpoint is b minus 2, 1. At this point, you could always do a left side, right side check to make sure that that point actually does give you the given midpoint.